Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidates interviews, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I'm your interviewer, Kathy Johnson, and I would like to interview Brandi Grayson, running for Alder from District 14. As we begin, please tell our viewers a bit about how your educational, vocational, and civic experience has prepared you for this position and why you decided to run for Alder.
Oh, thanks, Kathy, for that. Yes, my name is Brandi Grayson, and the experience that I have is more rooted in my personal experience experientially in terms of what I've done in my world, what I've created and caused in my world. So most of my experience as it relates to politics, I was about to say something else. It relates to politics is rooted in my activism work, my work in nonprofit. I've been in nonprofit industry for about 15, 20 years. I've been serving the people in the community for a long time. I did attend UW Madison and studied psychology, which allows me and provides me with a foundation in terms of communicating with people, active listening and things like that, which allows me the opportunity to build bridges, even come up with agreements with folks that I may not always agree with. So I think my life experience, as well as someone who moved to Madison at the age of 12 and being exposed to a community that I hadn't had experience with before. You know, I came to Madison really leaving an environment that was dangerous for a lot of reasons, community violence, uh, crack was a huge thing in our neighborhood. So I was surrounded by poverty and garbage. So when I came to Madison, I had this empowered and inspirational moment coming over John Nolan Bridge, and it just felt like possibilities, infinite possibilities. And I had committed myself for taking advantage of every single possibility that came and have come my way in Madison through social workers and my work and community. And that's what I've done, right? And I feel like a lot of those resources and opportunities no longer exist, and they matter. They matter to the well-being and the safety and the healthiness of our communities. So that's why I'm running.
Okay, first question. What
Mhm.
issue or issues have you identified as being a primary concern to the residents of your district, and how would you approach tackling them?
Well, you know, one of the most important things in my district is affordable housing. That is the number one thing. Parts of my districts are at extreme risk of aggressive gentrification. And because community members did a good job at building a sense of community and building community oriented business along South Park Street, we cannot allow gentrification to push out the fabric and like the richness of our community. We have to, do what we can to create permanent affordable housing, and affordable housing based off of livable wages. And so right now we have affordable housing that people still can't afford, right? So that's the number one challenge in our area. Number two is inequities, right? This isn't all spheres, of course, but there's an equity in access from public transportation to employment opportunities. There's an equity in services like internet access. There's an equity in criminal justice involvement, a combination of people necessary survival actions. We end up criminalizing people that can't afford to live versus doing what we can to support and provide programming to support folks. And of course, racial justice goes hand in hand with housing stability and home ownership, access to health-oriented mental health and substance support, all of that, all of those things that create safe and healthy communities, because we know that healthy communities equal safe communities. And we like to address, community violence in a way that actually exacerbates community violence by criminalizing people versus looking at the root of our challenges. And I stand for safe and healthy communities. And I want to bring my experience with programming and partnership and strategic partnership to the table so that we can get the job done of creating a healthy space and a healthy environment for District 14 for all people.
There will be an advisory referendum on the ballot in April about a number of modifications to the Common Council, including changing the number of members, making it full-time, and changing the term of office.
Mhm.
Which of these ideas being advanced do you embrace and why or why not?
To be honest with you, Kathy, I don't embrace any of them. I think they're problematic and dangerous. Anytime we try to redistrict, if we're looking at redistricting and making the districts larger, what we're inevitably going to do is push out the voices that are already unheard, right? And that's the thing regarding intention versus impact. Our intent is like, oh, we want equity. Oh, we just need to make this a livable wage thing, but it's more complicated than that, right? Like someone like me who's a nonprofit, a CEO, and love to do my activism and advocacy work, I couldn't do that while being on the city council. It eliminate me, right? And it makes it a career versus something that should be fluid, right? We should have folks running for seats every 2 years, right? It shouldn't be 4, it should be every 2 years, because that way we keep creativity, we keep innovation, we keep opportunities to bring young folks along with us into leadership, right? That's what it should be about. It shouldn't be about people making careers out of a position on Madison Common Council. And that's my fear. And it will cause more inequity, even though our intention is to cause more equity around wages, but I just don't think it's a great idea. I think it can be problematic, like I said, for a lot of reasons, especially if we're not willing to invest in the research. And I just don't think Madison is there yet. We're not there yet to make decisions that are radical, that center the people, and center the voices that are often left out of the table. And if we're going to redistrict, I can almost be certain in my projection that it will even cause more inequity, right? Then we add small pots of poor neighborhoods with large wealthy neighborhoods, and then the voices of those most vulnerable and disenfranchised won't get heard at all. We already have that challenging now with the way our district is lined out. So yep, okay, I wrapped up and I'm done. I'm out of time. Thanks, Joe.
Homelessness, evictions, and lack of affordable housing are vexing problems for Madison that
Mhm.
seems to have been exacerbated in the time of COVID-19.
Yep.
What ideas would you advance or support to help solve these problems?
Well, we need to be in discovery around how to create real permanent affordable housings. We have to get into discovery of how we remove private development out of the conversation, because we have all these huge tax credits going to large developers and they're getting rich, right? And for the sake of affordable housing, and someone like me who was working part-time 2 years ago, part-time and doing community work and raising my son, I could barely afford affordable housing, right? And I had an income of probably like $3,500 a month, and my 3-bedroom affordable apartment on the north side of Madison was close to $1,300 a month. And I just don't think that's feasible. And that definitely isn't affordable housing. And that's under what we call Section 42. So we really need to get in discovery about how to create permanent affordable housing, how to create home ownership, real home ownership, where folks don't have to low barrier home ownership, and cooperative models. And we have to support tiny homes and safe and respectable and humane shelters, right? As we figure out and develop permanent housing. And I would like to see Madison, including District 14, commit to 1,000 affordable permanent units in my district, right? And I will fight for that and advocate for that. Affordable housing based off our hourly wages, like whatever our state wages. I think they're still like $7, $8. I don't think they even went up yet, but we have affordable housing, like I said, that's not affordable. And that's a problem, right? Which leads to this influx of homelessness and compounds it, which COVID, as we know, compounded it. And we know that those who are disproportionately impacted by COVID and housing challenges are Black, brown, and those suffering from mental wellness challenges, and elderly folks that are vulnerable. And it's absurd that we keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result that continues to lead to this compounded effect. So I will end there. Thanks, Joe.
Okay. With the selection of a new police chief and the
Mhm.
creation of a community oversight board, there's a lot of attention focused on policing and criminal justice,
Mhm.
both from the perspective of racial equity in law enforcement and the concern of many citizens that, in fact, crime, especially car thefts and home burglaries, is increasing and police response is inadequate. How would you deal with these concerns?
I think we have to look at the root cause, right? We have to have a root cause analysis, and we often don't. We like to provide band-aid services when the wounds are oozing, right? We know community violence has increased and been compounded as a result of the pandemic. We also know that community violence is directly correlated with poverty, right? With desperation, with lack of hope, with lack of resources, lack of opportunity, with lack of services, with lack of programming. My district, District 14, I've been living in this district for going on 30 years. I think I've only lived on the north side. The only time I left the district is when I moved to the north side because I couldn't afford to be on the south side anymore. And then I got permanent job, and then I was able to move back to my district because I've been here forever. And what is very noticeable is the lack of resources for teenagers, right? Like, so when I was growing up on the south side, we had a community center. We can go eat, we can go get, help at any time. Like, from that community center is open at 9 and it stayed open to 10 o'clock. So even if our families was dysfunctional, our environment was chaotic, we knew where to go get a meal. We knew where to get comfort. We knew where to get support, clothes, back, we had that resources. Madison used to be in the 90s and the early 2000s, a place that provided for those who was most vulnerable, which saved my life, which made me who I am today. I came from these same environments. Some of the children that we see stealing cars and things like that come from. So we have to be willing to invest. Our budget has to reflect our investment in the people. Our budget currently reflects the investment in the criminality of those who are most vulnerable. And criminality never gets us anywhere. It gets us mass incarceration. It gets us $200 million in building a new jail versus $200 million in building resources, mental wellness supports, first responders without weapons, right? We send in police to deal with people with mental wellness challenges and it ends with death, right? We got to do better. We have to build up the people and invest in the people and not systems that are detrimental to the well-beingness of our humanness. Sorry, Joe, I went over a little bit. I got a little excited.
Okay. Madison businesses of all kinds have been during the past year.
Yeah.
What, if anything, would you propose to support business revitalization?
Absolutely. I think we need to allocate. This is the thing, like, we understand in politics, business of politics is business, right? Which means that we often invest in those businesses or systems that we have allegiance through, that we didn't lobby with, or there's been strings pulled in the background, which often leads out small businesses. It often leads out businesses who were hit the hardest as a result of COVID. We have to have relief funds specifically for business that are low barrier. Like, even with the $750,000 allocated to small businesses, LLCs, $5,000, $10,000 grants here, the whole process was pretty filled with all these red tapes. So a lot of people couldn't even access the funds, right? And then other people within our city council and our mayor was able to pull $250,000 and allocate it to a nonprofit, which should not have qualified, right? When we talk about equity, it doesn't mean taking from another vulnerable population to give to someone just to make you look good. So I would say that, and when we talk about businesses, we really need to do some real, getting real discovery and research about how we can support our current businesses, especially our moms and pops. They're the most important to our economy, right? And it's most important in terms of economic empowerment and social mobility, which is the mission of Madison, right? As a city, to guarantee safe and healthy communities for all and social mobility. We can't have social mobility if we're not investing in entrepreneurship, if we're not supporting businesses that have been around, right? And that are doing a wonderful job, that are giving back to our community. And even on State Street, there's plenty of businesses that give back to our community, right? Even despite what went happen in the summertime. And there's certain businesses, there's like, we have to learn how to invest without doing this either or thing. We need to learn the and. Yes, you can support equity and you can still invest in businesses. It doesn't have to be an either or. We have to learn how to do the and I'll wrap that up. Thanks, Joe.
What would you like to say to the viewing audience as we complete this interview?
Well, thank you for the opportunity, right? And thank you for broadcasting this everywhere. I didn't even know that was going to happen. But I want us to think about where we want to go as a city. I want us to think about how we can actually live up to our mission, right? Because we're often, we often have these policies or missions and value statements, but we're not living up to them, right? We can't have social mobility when our budget doesn't reflect providing supports and programming for healthy and safe communities. We can't say that we're into economic empowerment and a green environment. We have these green plans when we're not investing in retrofitting our businesses for that, right? We can't say that this is the number one place to live in the country and be proud of it when we have a whole nother population, folks in our community where it's the worst place, right? We can't have what's the appropriate word? This disconnection, right? We can't have Pleasantville for some and hell for others, right? If we have the resources, we have the capacity, we have the community investment, we have the social capital of people in our community that have proven their integrity and done the work, we have to learn how to bridge gaps and move away from this either or, right or wrong. I can actually have a different point of view than you, and we still can have similarity and commonalities that we all can advocate for. I'm sure if I ask most of us what's important in our world, and it's a safe, healthy community, right? And we can start there and figure out how we get there together versus this either or type of philosophy that politics ultimately always take, right? We are the people and we are for the people. So let's act like it so we all can have access to this Pleasantville experience that is only limited to some of us.
I want to thank Brandi for speaking with us and the viewing audience for taking the time to know your candidates. As with every election, please vote. On behalf of Madison City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, I thank you for joining us.